What's up, gamers? I am excited to finally get to talk about my early impressions of Awaken Realms' newest game, ISS Vanguard, the very first game to be released on their new Gamefound crowdfunding platform. Now, this video is coming to you just a little later than I initially planned because I really wanted to spend as much time as I could playing through all of the provided prototype content in order for me to really understand the game and, more importantly, let you know my overall thoughts. And I'm going to be completely transparent here with everything that I experienced over those 8 hours of play, including what started with a long 3-hour introductory video conference with the design team, just to get a solid grasp on the rules, because there is a lot of game to take in here. Now, Awaken Realms is constantly developing and tweaking their games right up to the time of production. So that time that was spent with their team was meant to make sure that we had both a good understanding of the game as it currently stood, and more importantly for them, to let us know their overall vision for the final product, knowing that changes are going to happen between now and the time that it reaches your table. And after playing through that tutorial mission with our team, along with 2 other missions on my own, I now have a really good foundation to kind of project out what I might expect from the complete campaign. But what I took away most from all my time spent with ISS Vanguard, even at this stage of development, is that this isn't just another big game. This is a big idea conceptually with numerous systems of interlocking mechanisms that's going to take an investment of your time to learn and play through, which is exactly the types of games that I've grown more accustomed to playing over the past several years. You see, ISS Vanguard is an enormous endeavor, probably the studio's single most ambitious title yet. And that's saying quite a lot coming from a publisher who is always trying new things with the games that they release. Games like This War of Mine and Etherfields, both of which have board game elements but also lean heavily on storytelling and narrative to really make you feel a part of those worlds. And ISS Vanguard most certainly continues that trend, at times feeling like a completely unconventional game by introducing new concepts that I honestly have never seen before. Things like this really cool shipbook, which I promise I'll get back to in just a moment. In fact, ISS Vanguard almost rides the line between being a board game and a role-playing game because of how it structures your participation in the story and how your group of players will experience and build and share that narrative along the way. Okay, there is a lot going on in this game, so in this video, I'm going to focus on just a few key points that I felt right now were the most compelling parts of the game. And again, please note that everything that you see here today is still very much in prototype form and still in development, so expect any number of changes to occur before the game's final release. Let me start with the obvious. ISS Vanguard is a massive, cooperative, campaign-style board game for 1 to 4 players that pays homage to classic space opera adventures like Star Wars, Star Trek, and even BioWare's beloved video game series Mass Effect. Over the course of numerous games, you and your friends will have the opportunity to work together to explore an unknown galaxy that is riddled with danger and mystery, with dozens of planets to investigate in hopes of solving the mystery behind a star map that scientists found embedded within their own DNA. Now, what's unique here is that ISS Vanguard isn't a game that centers around combat. Its core direction is really all about exploration and discovery, and using your team of specialists to conduct research, manufacture equipment, and upgrade your ship so that you, as a group, can ultimately find the origin of our genetic makeup. And this type of design philosophy was done on purpose, because Awaken Realms really wanted to make a game that wasn't focused on the combat and conflict that's so closely associated with these types of board games, and was instead made to emulate the feeling of discovery that's really at the core of shows like Star Trek or Lost in Space, where science and ingenuity are the catalysts that will keep your team alive. And in order to accomplish this feeling of identity and team that's so prevalent in those shows, or games like Mass Effect or even XCOM, ISS Vanguard does this by immediately putting you in the role of one of the game's 4 ship sections: engineering, recon, science, or security, each with their own set of crew members, dice, action cards, equipment, and even sleeves that will define their ability to gain experience or rank up throughout the campaign, all of which will fit neatly back into their own stored solution. And as you might have already guessed, each of these sections provide the Vanguard with their own set of unique abilities that will be upgraded over time, and more importantly, roles. that will frame the way that you provide support to the rest of the team and the arc of your overall story. And that's really just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how the game plans to immerse you into its universe, as there are certainly other very important parts of the game that come into play to add to this thematic backdrop. One of those is the game's use of audio that will ultimately be delivered in the form of an app that for us did a really good job at presenting the game's discovered audio logs, conversations, narrative cues, with professionally recorded audio and special effects. And this use of audible dialogue really reinforced how committed I think in making sure that players are constantly immersed in the stories that are taking place all around you.
Away Team Exploration Report 27B. We found trace amounts of water on the cave floor, but the central corridor ended in a massive cave-in. The sensors detected unusual vibrations from the other side of the rubble, as well as something that might have been a substantial concentration of water. Unfortunately, breaking through would require a large-scale evacuation effort.
But probably the most interesting and unique thing that's going on in all of ISS Vanguard is how the game breaks up its gameplay and really puts an emphasis on, once again, making you feel immersed in this universe by thematically cycling its phases like what you might expect a real ship crew to do. And to highlight this, the game is currently broken up into 3 main phases. And please use the term phases lightly, as each phase almost entirely is a full-length game itself. First, there is the Planetary landing phase, which is the shortest of the 3 and really exists to connect the 2 other phases together. It's in this phase that multiple choices must be made in preparation for the mission that's ahead, starting with the ability to choose the proper landing craft for your team, all of which come with their own set of unique perks and benefits that will provide support and resources to your team once you've landed on the planet. In addition, it's during this phase that players will pick their personal crew member that they feel is best suited for the mission, equipping them with whatever gear they've crafted or scavenged along the way. And finally, players will then fly their team down to the planet's surface in order to explore it further, sometimes dealing with unexpected troubles that may come up as they break the atmosphere of the planet. Next is the Planetary Exploration phase, which represents the bulk of ISS Vanguard's main gameplay and takes place on various planet boards that become available in the Planetopia book. Now, currently, there are about 40 pages that are planned out, meaning that there's going to be at least 20 full-size planets that you can explore, and probably more knowing Awakened Realms' track record and how they structure their campaigns. However, what's important to understand here is that it's this phase that most closely resembles that of a traditional board game, where players will cooperate together by discussing where they wish to move their crew members on the planet and which actions they wish to perform. Each planet holds a number of secrets and discoveries that can be gathered and returned to your ship and will be vital in unlocking new equipment and gear that will allow your team to progress further. When looking at a planet specifically though, each will hold a number of unique locations that will be revealed through challenges and tasks that are handled with dice and action cards. And don't worry, there is plenty of dice mitigation that can be used here. And I don't want to reveal too much because discovery is a huge part of this game, but what I will say is that several of these planets will provide you with the opportunity to revisit them, mostly because they require the proper set of tools to unlock structures or bases that you may have discovered on your first trip to the planet, giving the game a very Metroid, Castlevania feel to them as well. And whether your mission on the planet was a success or a failure, your team will ultimately return home to your quarters on the ISS Vanguard, transitioning your gameplay into the game's final step called the ship phase. Now, this entire phase is once again another robust part of the game, and it is during this phase that players will sequentially progress through the multiple tabs within your team's ship book, each of which contains multiple sets of pages that will allow you to track your progress and set goals for your crew. Each tab in the game, which includes things like the bridge, the situation room, research, or even manufacturing, all have their rules printed right there on the tabs themselves, meaning that you will never have to reference another rulebook to understand the steps that need to take place when resolving that section of the ship. There are so many cool things that take place during this phase that could be discussed here in far more detail and length, but I'll let you discover that on your own. However, I will summarize my personal experience with the ship book as a whole. For me, it was really during this phase of the game, as I progressed through this book, page by page by page, that I began to connect thematically with the idea that we were truly part of a spacefaring crew who was working together to manage all the obstacles that this unknown and foreign alien universe was throwing at us. Fundamentally, this part of the game is here to serve very specific purposes, such as a means to save your game's progress, or storing discoveries from your most recently visited planet. And these ideas branch out even further there by incorporating things like managing research tech trees or production queues, to leveling your crew members or allowing them to rest in the medbay in order to become available again in later missions. And each of these tabs is resolved in a way that allows each of the ship's sections to direct how these steps are ultimately carried out, giving even more weight to your role as a member on the ISS Vanguard. And for those of you who are fans of games like XCOM, there is even an area on your ship called the Memorial Wall that is dedicated to deceased crew members. Yes, your team members can and they will die, providing even more thematic resonance to the decisions that are made by the crew around you. As a whole, my experience with ISS Vanguard has been really enjoyable so far, and has shown me once again that Awakened Realms is not afraid to try new things in board gaming. This time being really focused on what is at the core of any good space adventure by relying more heavily on the community of the crew that is involved and the relationships that are formed within those unknown confines of space. I realize that this is just a very, very small portion of what you might expect from the final game, so I would invite you, of course, to make any comments or ask any questions below. And as always, make sure you guys go to their Gamefound page to get a deeper look at the game. And as always, thank you for watching. Hey everyone, if you enjoyed this video, please consider dinging the bell below. That's going to notify you of all the new videos that are uploaded to our channel. Give us a big ol' thumbs up, subscribe, and as always, you consider watching all of our other videos on the channel, one of which is right here to my left.